Journalist Matt Taibbi, he's been on the show a couple of times. You know, he was kind of known for calling out corporations, calling out the billionaires, calling out censorship, a really big one. And for whatever reason, something has changed. And I'm not sure where this is coming from, but I noticed it at the last interview I had with him, which was 1 year ago. I noticed something was happening there. Currently, as it stands right now, the statement that Matt Taibbi made on X has definitely made people not happy. In fact, you're going to see some of those responses here tonight where people said that they are very sad by what he has said and the direction that he appears to be moving in. But I started to see something change 1 year ago, and I want to take you back to that part of the conversation, and then we're going to fast forward to what just recently happened. What has happened to Matt Taibbi? 1 year ago, when he was on the show, we were talking a lot about censorship, and everything was going cool until I brought up Gaza. Check this out. Gaza, as you know, the war in Gaza has been going on since October. I've talked about it a lot on this show. I'm sure you know Katie Helper has been covering this probably just about every live stream. She's really good on this issue. Same thing with the gray zone. I want to get your opinion about the war in Gaza. How do you feel about what's happening there? There was just a statement from the Pentagon released that they do not consider to be what's happening in Gaza genocide. I strongly disagree. But how do you feel about that, and where do you stand on this particular issue?
I'm probably generally in agreement with you. You know, Israel-Palestine is a story that I have never liked to comment on for a couple of reasons. I had some bad experiences trying to cover a couple of protests once upon a time that left a bad taste in my mouth. And the other thing is, it's a very, very complicated story with a lot of history, and I don't know anything about it. Like, I would love to just go there and learn more about what's happening rather than opine from a distance. Like Ukraine, I know a lot of that stuff. I lived in that part of the world for a long time. But this is an issue where I just don't like to get in the. I found throughout my career that no matter what you say, unless you have it 100% nailed down, you get in trouble somewhere. And I just don't know enough about it to feel like I'm really an authority on it.
I also realized, looking back at this, that I do not have a poker face. I'm sorry. Oh my God, I do not have a poker face. You get in trouble about it with who? Zionists?
Anybody. I mean, I don't feel like I have an obligation to talk about things that I haven't covered. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are issues that I spend a lot of time on and comment on a lot because I've covered those issues. I've made phone calls on those issues. Like, I feel like I know what I'm talking about. And with Israel and Palestine, there are elements of that story that make me uncomfortable, and I just, the world can go without my opinion on that matter, I think.
I think I disagree with that, Matt. I think genocide is a serious issue. I'll tell you, Glenn Greenwald told me one time. He said, "No one is an expert at everything." Like he had warned me about this. He said, "Nobody is an expert at anything. I don't care how long you've been doing this." So what it taught me is that if there's an issue that I don't know much about or I don't feel comfortable covering, I reach out to people who are experts on that issue. I think it would mean a lot to, especially a lot of people watching, to hear, how you feel about what's happening, because a lot of people do see you as a prominent voice in independent media, and they do value your work. And I don't think that you should have to be afraid of the pushback that you're going to get. Just look at people like Aaron Mate and Max Blumenthal, for example. They get a lot of pushback. People smear them all the time, but that doesn't stop them from speaking the truth.
Right. I just can't stress enough. If there are things about this story that make me nervous, and I feel like, it's the first rule in medicine is do no harm. So if I don't say anything, I'm not doing any harm. my job is to get stuff right and not get stuff wrong. So, you know, I understand that there are people who would like to hear from me on this issue, but I don't have a whole lot to add on this issue. I'd be regurgitating something that I got from somewhere else, and you know, I'm not a news service. I sort of disagree with that whole conception. Like, there are 2 or 3 things that I spend a lot of time on because I cover them over and over again. I'm constantly talking on the phone with people, and this issue just isn't one of them. I know that people feel like that's ducking, but that's the way it is.
Well, you're a parent, Matt, right? Like, so you're a dad. How do you feel about the children? How do you feel about the kids that have been killed in Gaza?
I mean, not good, but again, I don't want to talk about this whole thing. I just don't. I mean, it's not a news story that I would voluntarily talk about. Let's put it that way. If I went there and did a story, then that would be different. But right now, I just don't feel like I need to be in the middle of it. There are a lot of people talking about it already. You know, I just don't want to chime in.
Okay. So that was 1 year ago. For those of you who saw that interview, you know how the rest of the conversation went there. What you do not know is what happened after that interview took place. After that interview, he did reach out to me, said, thank you for the discussion. And I'm not going to get into all the details on here, but there was a lot of back and forth between the two of us. And long story short, he was not happy that I asked him about Gaza. What you do have to understand is at that point in time, again, we were talking a lot about censorship. And at that point in time, there were people who lost their jobs because of those discussions about Gaza. In fact, one of them being Katie Halper. She lost her job at Rising. She was, I think, a guest contributor at Rising earlier on. She lost her job. Matt Taibbi was a co-host on the Useful Idiots podcast with Katie Halper. That was the original Useful Idiots podcast. He then left to pursue writing a book. Aaron Mate came in and filled Matt's spot. And I don't know if that book by Matt is done or if he's come. I don't know what's happening. I don't know if he's going back there or not. But the point is this: someone that he knew lost their job because they were talking about Gaza. So the censorship thing, which was very big at that time, what we were talking about, not just the Twitter files, but people being censored for speaking their truth. And it just seemed like, for whatever reason, once I brought up Gaza and we're talking about the censorship around that, all of a sudden we can talk about censorship, but we can't talk about people being censored because of Gaza. That right there, it was that moment. And the email I got from him after that let me know something is happening to him. And now I don't know if people reach out to him. I don't know if he got threats. A lot of us have gotten threats. For those of you who don't know, a lot of us have been threatened. Some of us have been threatened over Israel, Gaza. Some of us have been threatened over other damn things. So there are many of us that have gotten threats from people. So going back to that told me something is happening here. I don't know what it is, but this is the same journalist that called out corporations, called out Wall Street, called out these entities, and now is all of a sudden trying to defend Bari Weiss getting exposure with said corporation, said corporate media. This is the guy who used to call out corporate media all the time. And so because people are not happy with CBS giving this deal to Zionist pro-genocide Bari Weiss, Matt Taibbi swoops in to defend her. Now, here's the thing, folks. Whether he was threatened or not, maybe that's the case. I don't know. Put that to the side and let's say that's one thing. Threatened or not threatened, that doesn't mean that he had to come in and write this article to defend pro-genocide Zionist gall of a woman, Bari Weiss. That was not needed. Bari Weiss has plenty genocide Zionist defenders that will stand up for her. And what everybody is calling out on X, including a lot of the people who were fans and appreciated Matt Taibbi's work, you went to the extent to write an article to defend this woman. Now, what is this really about? So Paramount and CBS, they decided to give Bari Weiss this platform on CBS, on corporate media. So Bari Weiss, she founded this network called the Free Press. So she said they were independent, all this stuff. I tell you, everybody independent now, right? So she had founded that. Apparently, we're supposed to believe that the work was so great that CBS and Paramount reached out to her and said, let's come on and bring on. When the reality is, the reason why they are giving a microphone to Bari Weiss is to spread the Zionist propaganda. I wasn't born yesterday. I wasn't born last night. And neither was Matt Taibbi. And I'll be damned if I sit up here or you even sit up there and believe that Matt Taibbi seriously believes that people are upset with Bari Weiss because they're jealous. Why would the pro-Palestinian movement be jealous of pro-genocide Bari Weiss? But that is what he is saying. On Bari Weiss CBS and legacy media tiers, the jealous losers complaining about Bari Weiss CBS deals are like spaniels who not only expect their master to feed them, but to cut the canned food into bits. Here's the article here. We'll go to the article. We'll come back to the comments because I want you to see what people are saying. First of all, this article that he wrote, the mainstream press seems to believe it's perpetual entitlement program, right? So watch this. So he cites The Nation. The Nation wrote an article about this. Vile grifters are taking over establishment media. That is true. We've been talking about that on this show over and over again. But what is very telling to me is that this article is paywalled. And I know sometimes on Substack, they do paywall some of their articles. I get that. But you said all this, and then you put it behind a paywall. Of course, The Nation calls Weiss a grifter because that's how they view a process known in the industry as making money. Since the icon of irrevocable media revenue loss was last profitable in, well, never, it naturally has a lot to say about the wisdom of paying millions on the controversial The Free Press editor. They weren't alone recapping protests from the peanut gallery. So I don't know what the hell happened to Matt Taibbi, but he came in to write an article to defend Bari Weiss. Now, let me say something else. I can't speak for other people. For me, this is not about Bari Weiss making money, okay? This is about this effort to take the message that Bari Weiss has, to take her genocidal message, her propaganda, and make it mainstream so she can reach more people. Give me a fucking break. The Free Press ain't all that, okay? We'll take a look at it. It ain't all that. You got independent journalists out here working their ass off. I don't see Paramount or CBS knocking on their damn door. Hello. So this right here, where is this coming from? Now, if you go back to the tweets, let's just look at the comments. People are like, what the hell are you doing, right? So I commented and I said, she supports genocide. Ganja Girl, Matt, you're standing for a genocidal incompetent who is a hypocrite on free speech, happily kills poets, and didn't even know what the word toady meant. Let that sink in real deep. Jenin, wow, this is incredibly disappointing coming from you. Bari Weiss has a decade-long record of being a total hypocrite on free speech, touting the idea when it's anti-woke speech and trying to get people fired when it's pro-Palestinian speech. This is true. Here's Nico. It's the genocide, Matt. People are mad that she's getting a bag that is disproportionate to her reach and influence, specifically to promote genocide. See, no one is falling for this. Zed Gilani. So, Matt, now you're pro-corporate mainstream media. Every time you wrote about CNN, you were jealous? Question mark. Here's Chuck Modi. Have you ever considered your confusing jealousy for being upset for having a larger platform to help extend a genocide? The list goes on and on. On and on. This is the free press, right? So this is the outlet that Bari Weiss started here. She's the founder of it. And here are all the people. So you got her, you got Abigail Batya, who for whatever reason doesn't have a picture. She's also a Zionist. Charles Lane. You got Coleman Hughes, who said, don't talk about race and get away from identity. But he was one of the first to jump out and proudly say he was a Zionist and support Israel and say why Israel is so important. It's so funny how it's don't talk about identity when you're talking about Black people, but the moment Israel comes up, it's okay to talk about identity. So she got this clown. I told you guys about Coleman Hughes before. Coleman Hughes working with them. Eli Lake, Jed Rubenfield, Kat Rosenfield, Larissa Phillips, Martin Gary, Matthew Continent, Maddie Friedman, Nellie Bowles, Neal Ferguson, Rue Teixeira, Susie Weiss, and Tyler Cohen, right? So first of all, most people have never even heard of this outlet, but we're supposed to believe Paramount and CBS is like, oh my God, look at the outstanding work they're doing there. Let's go ahead and bring Bari Weiss on. No, this is about narrative control. Who is Bari Weiss? Let's remind you what Bari Weiss did to Professor Refaat Alareer. That Z Squirrel was always on it. Z Squirrel was on it from day one. So deranged Israeli propagandists took a horrific act they actually committed themselves, claimed Palestinians did it. Bari Weiss then used it to put a kill target on Refaat for joking about it, and now they're celebrating them killing him and his family over it. It's astonishing. They are referring to, remember him? Remember Professor Refaat? He said, if I get killed by Israeli bombs or my family is harmed, I blame Bari Weiss and her likes. Many maniacal Israeli soldiers already bombing Gaza take these lies and smears seriously, and they act upon them. And then he was killed. Bari Weiss said it here. Here is Refaat Alareer joking about whether or not an Israeli baby burned alive in an oven was cooked with or without baking powder. Remember, Bari Weiss also spread the baby hoax. She was one of the journalists that was spreading the baby in the oven hoax. And Max Blumenthal, Israeli reservist soldiers flooded Refaat's DMs with twisted death threats on the day that Bari Weiss lied about him, as she legitimized a fake, debunked October 7 atrocity story in a tweet viewed 2.3 million times. But it's insane to suggest a connection. Here's some of those screenshots here. This is who Bari Weiss is. This is who Matt Taibbi is defending. These were just some of the messages that were, I can't even read them. a lot of these on here, but these were the messages that were coming his way. One person here says, send me your address. We are going to wipe you out. See, that was Max Blumenthal's friend. He was friends with Professor Alareer. That's who Matt Taibbi decided to defend. Here's another reaction here. This is from Muhammad. Bari Weiss belongs in a tribunal at The Hague for directing the IDF to assassinate professor and poet Refaat Alareer and several members of his family, all for a joke he made ridiculing the October 7 atrocity hoaxes she spread. A lot of people don't know this if they weren't on Twitter, like following this. He was killed again. Russell Dobler. I read it. Straw man a go-go. When Taibbi, for whatever reason, because I guess someone was telling him to read that article, which I told you, I showed you here is paywalled, and I wasn't damn sure about to pay for it. Fuck that. Straw man a go-go. When Taibbi, for whatever reason, decided that he wasn't going to talk about Israel, he made himself useless. You can't cover the story without covering Ellison's deep Israel connections and Weiss's fanatical Zionism. If you aren't willing to go there, you're going to end up writing some dumb shit about journalist entrepreneurs, never considering why Weiss is getting paid that much for an outlet without a lot of circulation. That certainly doesn't make enough to justify those numbers. The old Taibbi would have been all over the story of an oligarch with deep ties to a foreign country overpaying for a glorified blog, then hiring its owner to act as a public censor for CBS, especially if that public censor was widely believed to have put a target on the back of a Palestinian poet who was subsequently targeted and killed by the IDF. This iteration of Taibbi wants you to believe that the real story here is the nation losing money and the New York Times being censorious and woke. Burying the lead doesn't begin to describe it. It is so willfully off target. It would be funny if it wasn't so sad. There's more. Najat said, who the entire fuck is jealous of a woman who placed a kill target on a beloved Palestinian academic and journalist and his family? Here's one more. Your Substack article here is a fine object lesson in missing, avoiding actually the point. You know very well the left critique of this deal is not based on economic resentment, but on substantive issue of further entrenching Zionist policing of the MSM by a uber Zionist cop, Weiss, who defends the genocidal ethnic cleansing of Palestine, calling for the assassination of Palestinian poet and defending the killing of Palestinian journalists. You are not being brave or funny or quirky, independent, anti-woke, anti-libtard, anti-establishment by ignoring and effectively allying with her and her uber Zionist oligarch patrons' political mission, which not the economic, political mission, which not the economic is, as you know, the most important objective for both of them. Nobody on either side cares how much money Goebbels made. And if you don't think that's a relevant analogy, then argue that, because that is what you are taking a position on and are here being criticized for by the anti-Zionist left of the nation and Dems, as you know. Just don't think you've avoided it. There's many more, but we can't be here all night. So what I will say is this. When Matt Taibbi released the Twitter files, don't forget that Bari Weiss was also one of the journalists at that point that was working on the Twitter files as well. So I don't know if they're friends. I can't say that they are, but what I can say is obviously there was some type of professional relationship there. That don't mean you go and write a whole damn article defending this pro-genocide Zionist witch of a woman. I have no nice things to say about Bari Weiss. Bari Weiss supports the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. Bari Weiss sat there in front of Jerry Seinfeld's face, and they sat there together to sob and make it seem like they are so oppressed, and how dare you look down on them. Meanwhile, calling for the elimination of an entire population of people. I don't have nice things to say about Bari Weiss. What is weird to me is why Matt Taibbi, all of a sudden, you have a reason to defend this vile person. After all the people you've called out over the years in whatever book you were writing at that time, where you called out the corruption and the ties to corporate interests and the greed, that was the Matt Taibbi as a journalist that many of us liked and appreciated. And for some of the people who were crashing out and said, oh my God, people, please don't criticize him. Nah, fuck that. You can appreciate the work that he did in the past and still call out the bullshit he's doing right now. And if you can't, I'm wondering what's up with you. So something happened here. Something has changed. Threats, maybe, I don't know. Many of us have been threatened for covering Gaza. Many of us have been threatened for not going along to support Kamala Harris, believe it or not. Many of us that voted for Jill Stein were threatened because we voted third party. So people can miss me with all of that. But for Matt Taibbi to sit up here and write this article and jump to this woman's defense, that tells me everything I need to know. And I go back to that interview I had with him 1 year ago, and it all comes back again. I saw there was something happening right then and there. Now, I don't know who got to Matt Taibbi, and it's a sad thing, and it's a damn shame. But do not sit up here and point your finger at the pro-Palestinian activists and say that they are jealous because she's getting this deal with CBS. Why would people who are anti-genocide and pro-Palestine, why would they be jealous of this wretched pro-genocide vile creature of a woman? It makes absolutely no sense. And you can have your criticism of the nation, whatever outlet, yada, yada. But the reality is Matt Taibbi knows exactly what the criticism was about. He knows exactly why people were pointing their fingers at her. And for him to sit up here and pretend like it's all about money, that tells me you corrupt too. That tells me they got you too. That tells me you in with the establishment too. That tells me you not going to fight back against the establishment no more. That tells me you in with the corruption. That tells me that you've been bought off too. And I don't give a damn who you are. When I see that it's wrong, I'm going to call it out that it's wrong. It's sad, it's disturbing, but it is absolutely disgusting that you would jump in to defend this sick woman. And you should be ashamed of your damn self. That's all I'm going to say on that. Everybody pay attention. I told you guys, man, pay attention. I told you in 2025, you're going to start to see who sticks with the same positions. You're going to see who continues to fight and the ones who cave. Pay close attention because people are not being consistent. I have sat up there and I have said what I said about Gaza under Biden's presidency and under Donald Trump's presidency. And what I am noticing is that some people trying to switch course because different people are in office. I don't know who the fuck Matt Taibbi is trying to placate to. But that shit ain't working over here. Period. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.